Hello, everyone. My name is Mark Cook. I'm the CEO of Shiny Shoe, and we are the creators of Monster Train. It's good to be back on stream again. It's been a few weeks for me. And today, we've got exciting news. Today is December 10th, 2020, and we just launched our controller and keyboard full support update on both Steam and GOG. So that update is available right now. It adds the ability to play the game completely without a mouse. You can use a controller, you can use your keyboard. It was like partially playable with keyboard before, now it's fully playable. And there are a number of balance changes that also went into that patch that we could possibly talk about some today. And there's all the details are in a Steam community post that's been posted in our Discord as well, if you want to find the link there. I'm sure we'll post it on Reddit and so on as well in the near future, if we haven't already. But all the nitty-gritty details are there. They're also there in game, so we can just pull up the patch notes and look at it in game too. So today we are going to look a little bit at what the kind of how the controller support works, how some of the new features in the patch work. There's also a accessibility change that we added to make the controller support work better if you're playing at TV distance. So let's say you're using Steam Big Picture, you're using your controller. We have a new UI scale mode where you can scale up the size of certain UI elements in the game by turning this on. So we'll look at that briefly. And if you just want the UI to be bigger and you're playing on a PC, go ahead. You can do it there too. And we're also going to look at some of our DLC. So last week, Andrew played a partial run of the paid DLC that we've previously announced that's going to be coming out at some point. We haven't announced a release date or even a name, I don't think, yet. So you guys got a taste of what's going on with the new clan there, the Wormkin. But today we're going to look at some other new content that's going into that DLC. We're adding one new rare card in the original 5 clans. And we had planned to announce all of them today, but one of them was accidentally announced as Andrew was playing last week. It just happened to pop into one of his drafts. But we'll look at all 5 of the cards for the original 5 clans and talk about the gameplay mechanics and so on for what they do. Folks, if anybody has any questions and so on in the chat, feel free to post them. I'm happy to answer them as I go. But why don't we look at the new version of the game, the new update first. So jumping over. Wait, first I'll show you. I'm going to be using a controller. So I've got this Xbox One controller plugged into my PC. Wanted to make sure I didn't run out of battery, so I'm using a USB cable. But I'm going to be using this to control the game. So here we are over here on the game. This is version 11672. This was the one that we just launched within the last 45 minutes or so. And so I am using my controller to go up and down the main menu using the analog stick. Very exciting. All right, Mars Greek God, question. Why is Stop Thief so rare? I don't know. I don't know what that means. I feel like I'm missing something. The Juke 83, I have a question. When? Well, for the controller and keyboard update, today. For the paid DLC, I don't know yet. We'll let you know as soon as we're ready to let you know. Umbra Profess says, hey, my friend was wondering if you have a price estimate yet. We do, but I don't know if we're ready to announce it yet. So I think what I've answered this before vaguely, it's going to be cheaper than the main game. It's going to seem reasonable, I think, for the amount of content and value. So we'll announce it soon. Binkley, will it add new music? Yes, the new DLC is going to add some new music. And Glitch Vision 0101, thanks for the controller support. This is awesome. All right, you're welcome. Let's see how it works. So moving up and down in the menu, and we've got every single menu. Like previously, we had like partial keyboard support. Like you could do a few things with the keyboard. But now things like going into starting run, I'm using the D-pad right now, or you can use the analog stick to navigate around. We've added some new like accelerators. Like you can see next to the depart button, there's a X button symbol for an Xbox controller. So if I push that, I don't have to like navigate all the way down if I don't want to. I can just hit that and it will immediately depart. So we've tried to, put in some of these types of things into the game to make it easier. You can navigate around all of these types of menus, see all the tooltips on all of these sorts of things. Really our goal was to try to make every last element of the game completely playable with a controller. or keyboard. So like all the things I'm doing right now also now work with keyboard. One important note I do want to say to anybody who previously had played with keyboard and had rebound their keys, you're going to want to reset your bindings and bind them again. Like so much has changed about how keyboard control binding works now because there's just all these new types of inputs and so on. I would highly recommend resetting and redoing it again just to be sure that you don't run into any kind of oddities. Yeah, so let's go into a battle. Like I'm just going to show around here. You know, you can navigate down here. You can just press B to skip. You know, we've tried to make a clean and easy to use design for all this stuff throughout the entire game. One thing that's like in a game like Monster Train that's kind of interesting is there's so much information up on the HUD at the top of the screen, like your artifacts, your deck, and so on, information about the Pyre, the Covenant levels. So there's like a dedicated button, it's the Y button, to move your selection up into here, and then you're kind of like in a mode where now you can move around through these menus. Deck View does have a dedicated accelerator button on the controller, but for any other information you want to get up there, you've got to kind of change modes. So jumping into Battle Start, there's an accelerator for turning the trial on and off. We go into the fight. All right. So yeah, I mean, it pretty much works like you'd expect. You can go back and forth in your hand. We have the right analog stick mapped to going up and down the train floors. You can summon characters in, just like you would imagine. Point at them, cast spells, play my little morsel, all that sort of stuff. It's all functional, all different. You know, we've definitely played through complete runs completely with controller. It all works, and with keyboard. So I hope folks who are looking forward to playing with a controller, sitting back at their TV, or just, you know, I think on laptops too, that's another use case where I've wanted to play with keyboard only. Like if I'm on a flight and I'm using a small 13-inch laptop, I mean, who flies these days during the pandemic, let's say, but in olden days, when when playing with this tiny touchpad and just playing a mouse-based game kind of sucks on those laptops. So that's another time when full keyboard support is definitely nice. So yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. It's all functional here. So what I want to show you next is something that we have, a new accessibility option, and this is the UI scale mode thing that I mentioned. So still using my controller to do everything here. We've redone the settings menu slightly because we're just getting too many settings. It was getting too cramped, so now there's dedicated tabs for different things. And under the accessibility tab is a new option called UI scale. Adjust the scale of game UI such as tooltips and cards. So this doesn't scale up 100% of everything, but it does scale up a decent amount of stuff. So let's set it to large mode. That's the new option. Time racers. I'll answer your question in just a minute after I end this topic. Kaiulin, is the A button to select, B to cancel? Yes, by default, that is the case. All right, so let's look at the logbook. So the logbook is one example of where there's a difference if you're in the large scale UI. So here it is. When you are navigating through the logbook, if you've got the large scale UI, you will see that the cards scale up to be much bigger to make them easier to read while you're browsing the logbook. And I'm going to switch to mouse real quick. And so this also works with mouse. Like the UI scale mode has nothing specifically to do with controller. You can enable it while playing with mouse or keyboard or whatever. But we did put it in specifically for things like Steam Big Picture and playing from far away. But if it helps other folks play on PC who just want it to be bigger, more power to you. And I'll show you what that looks like in a run too, because there is changes in here. So we've got a couple of things going on. The HUD at the top up here, everything is bigger up here. All of the tooltips, like we've got the information about refracting lenses, consume, we've got the unpurgeable tooltips on screen right now. All of those are also bigger. When you hover a card, the card size in the hand down here is also bigger. One kind of like negative side effect of having the cards bigger here is that they do sometimes block the enemy stats. So I can't see the health and attack right now because it's so much bigger. But we added a control. You can push down. So you can push down to push the card down if you want to see what's going on there. that was the best solution we were able to come up with for how we wanted this to work. So it's kind of like a hard balance. It's like we want the cards to be bigger in this big mode, but also there's this other information you need to see, but you can move the cards out of the way when you need to. Yeah, I think that's mostly it. So, I mean, there's a lot of tooltips in our game. You see cards a lot in our game, so everywhere you see tooltips, cards, and then the HUD is permanently bigger. All those things are larger in the large scale UI mode to try to make it easier to play from sitting farther away. Posi Denny says, why do the Hellhorn all have great abs? That is a great question. I mean, the Molting Imp is in the Hellhorn clan and does not have great abs. In fact, you could call him portly. So I don't think it's all of them. And don't forget about, what's the other imp called? The one that I call the Ember Imp. Where is that guy? The Gorger. Pyre Chomper. That guy does not have great abs. That's some dad bod right there who's drank way too much beer. All right, cool. So that is the overview of keyboard and controller support. Here, I'll switch to the keyboard real quick. So you can seamlessly switch between all this stuff. So now I'm pushing the keyboard. You can see the tooltips for the buttons to press changed. So the new default mappings for going up and down the floors are page up and page down. You know, you can still remap that stuff. Cast cards, all this sort of thing. All the elements that were previously there are still accessible, but now also you can go through all the menus like this. These types of menus, like the pause menu or the main menu, previously you could not control with keyboard. So we, just identical to controller, you can now navigate for all those things with keyboard too. One caveat right now, I'll say is currently, I'll jump back to this mode. Currently, all of the controller icons are Xbox icons, even though we do technically support other controllers. Like we've tested PS4, Switch Pro, and Stadia. So, in an ideal world, we'd have all the right icons. Maybe one day we will. As of today, we currently don't. So sorry about that. The other thing is right now you cannot remap the controller in-game. I think on Steam, in big picture mode, you can use the outside of the game remapping should work, as far as I understand. I've not personally tested that, but currently you can't remap the controller. You can still remap the keyboard, and it works exactly the same as it did before. There's just more types of inputs now that we've added deeper keyboard support into the game. And maybe one day we'll add controller support if there's enough, controller remapping support if there's enough demand for it. But unfortunately, inside the game right now, you cannot remap the controller. What else was I going to say about it? Yeah, just a reminder, one more reminder, if you've previously played with keyboard and you changed your bindings, please reset your bindings and set them up again, because there's enough that's changed that you might encounter some weirdness if you had previously rebound. All right, so I'm going to jump back to Time Racer's question. So are you going to make the mod loader for the GOG version? Right now, we don't have plans to. So you can still use mods on GOG, but we've basically all of our mod support is set up around the Steam Workshop. Steam Workshop doesn't exist on the GOG platform. I'm going to keep calling it GOG. That's what the guys in Poland said that they call it there, so I'm going with that as the official name. So right now there is no workshop on GOG or equivalent to the workshop, so we don't have plans to do it. That said, you can independently just do it anyways using BepInEx, which I've explained on previous streams is it's an open source tool that we use under the hood to facilitate mod support. You can just use that straight up on the GOG version and it will work. And you can, ask a friend maybe, the mods. I think anybody can download the mods off Workshop. If maybe you don't even need the game. I'm not 100% sure, but you can copy the Workshop mods. It's possible to set it up. It's going to take manual somebody's going to have to figure out how to do it and explain it. But if you copy all the files into the right place, it will work. But the in-game UI support, we don't currently have plans to add that for the GOG version because there's no equivalent of Steam Workshop on GOG. That's why. All right, Advice Colon says, oh, that's awesome. Very accessible. Appreciate this patch. Yeah, you're welcome. I hope you guys enjoy it who are looking forward to playing with the new modes. And if you want a bigger UI, you've got that now too. All right, so changing gears. I'm happy to continue to answer questions about the patch that went out today for controller and keyboard support, but changing gears, let's talk about some new DLC stuff. So Andrew's stream last week showed off some of the Wormkin's core mechanics. played some cards, played a run partially, and so on. And by accident, we revealed the fact that we are adding one new rare card per clan. So part of the reason for this, that we wanted to add more rare cards to the existing clans, is partially for rare unit drafts especially. We felt like we didn't have enough variability in runs. So on all clans except for Melting Remnant, we've added a new rare unit. And rare units are also where we can like kind of go crazier with the design space, since they don't come up as often, and kind of make more interesting or more powerful types of units. So we've done that, and today we're going to look at all of them. We're not going to look at them inside the game. We're just going to look at screenshots of them. And note, as always, this is pre-release content. It's subject to change, even completely change the tuning, but I'll show you what they're set up as today, and then we can talk a little bit about those mechanics and how they work. All right, Amphi DSF, I never know. Enough about the damn keyboard and gamepad. Tell me about the wormy boys. All right, I'm going to answer these questions, then we'll switch to the new cards. All right, I am BGS. Does today's patch change the event arrangements of existing run seeds? I don't think so. I don't think it would affect today's patch that went live would not affect determinism at all, I don't think. Some cards were redesigned. We could go over the patch notes for that. We'll look at the new cards from the DLC, then we'll look at the patch notes from the new thing to kind of go over some of the game design changes. But I don't think it shouldn't affect run generation, because there were no changes to determinism that I'm aware of. And there was no new content. We like redesigned how some cards worked, but we didn't like add new cards that would like throw off the determinism and so on. Malay 23, glad to see you guys are being successful though. Hope this means more DLC and games, from Shiny Shoe. You better believe it, for sure. Yeah, we're excited about continuing to advance Monster Train and add content to it, as well as future things further down the line. All right, so let's jump over and look at these cards real quick. Okay, we're going to go in the order that the clans appear in the game. These are the new rare cards in the DLC. Let's start with Hellhorned. The new rare from the Hellhorned is called Apex Imp. He's got armor 10, 2 capacity, 10/10 stats, and he's got a new trigger. He's got a trigger type called Armored. Gain rage equal to gained armor. So this is the only unit in the game that's going to have this new armored trigger. So yeah, when he's summoned in, he gains armor immediately and then gains rage. And if you have other armor generation kind of capabilities, which there's a lot of in Hellhorned, of course, it's one of their themes, you can get his attack power even higher. Opens up some new strategies, new ways to use armor kind of offensively with him. All right. We've got the Steel Singer from the Awoken. 4 capacity, 2 Ember, 340 base stats. On summon gains 80 max health, so it goes up to 120. And Rejuvenate, which is a trigger that fires when he's healed, plus 3 attack permanently. So this is a guy you want to beef up and you want to keep healing. It synergizes with regen also, of course, because you get... if you're able to, you get additional triggers of Rejuvenate every single turn when regen triggers. That's even better if you have a bunch of regen during a Relentless battle that lasts for a while, because it'll keep piling up, right? Poseidon J, is this the first unit that has 2 relevant types? I think yes. So this guy, jumping back just for a second to Apex Imp, he's both a demon and an imp as his subtype. I believe that's not a unique type, it's both. But I might be wrong. Someone who knows, Amphid SF is going to know, so they can correct me. But yeah, Steel Singer gains attack permanently on healing, but is otherwise a big boy, so 4 capacity is a decent price to pay. Armo says that it's both, so cool, confirmed. It's both types. So I think that is the first card in the game that has 2 types. Steel Singer, on the other hand, is a holo, of which there are a variety of holos, of course. All right, let's look at the third. From the Stygian Guard, we've got the Eel Gorgon. 2 Ember, 2 capacity. Incant, which is a trigger that if you're familiar with the game, you already know. It is when you cast a spell in the same room the unit's in. Gain multi-strike 1. And also as a resolve trigger, which happens at the end of combat, remove all status effects. So you can pile up attack and multi-strike on the Eel Gorgon, but it's removed at the end of the turn. So some interesting things to think about when it comes to how to make effective use of this unit. A Drain says, what is the trigger for Armored? All right, we'll jump back to the Apex Imp. It's whenever the Apex Imp gains armor. So it's when this unit is armored, gains armor, then he gains additional rage simultaneously. So it's like a double bonus. Irguler, how does it work with store upgrades? If you mean the Eel Gorgon, I think we just figured out that that's a problem with this unit, that there are some store upgrades that add status effects, and I think we're going to block them is the current plan. And I'm pretty sure that change just went in like an hour ago or something like that. So certain merchant upgrades are going to be ineligible for the Eel Gorgon because it's just too confusing or feels weird or unintuitive with how the resolve trigger works. So I don't know if we'll stick with that. Still subject to change, but that's the current plan. Darkest Tempest. Will that affect your Sirens and Cant triggers too, the Eel Gorgon? I think the Resolve trigger is only for yourself. So no, I think there's no impact on any other unit that's in the same room with it. That's my memory of how this works. So I don't think it impacts that at all. It's just, everybody in the room will gain Incant when you cast a spell in the room, and only the Eel Gorgon loses its status effects at the end of combat, excuse me. All right. From the Umbra, we've got Morsel Made, a unit made completely out of morsels. It's got a new trigger, Morsel Summoned. Instantly feed on summoned morsel unit. So you don't have to wait until the end of the turn to feed. It does it instantly. So if you can generate a lot of morsels, this guy can gobble them up really fast. And on Gorge, which triggers when you eat a morsel, +2/+2. So this one is pretty, I guess, interesting if you can get your morsel generation going. But you also have to factor in you can't use morsels as like chump blockers and so on in the room because he's going to eat them immediately. So yeah, interesting one. All right, Advice Colon asks, does Burnout leave with Resolve with the Eel Gorgon? Burnout is a status effect, so yes. I'm 99% sure that that's true. If somebody in just the chat knows from the dev team, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's true. So yeah, Burnout would be removed. Everything. Positive and negative. Does Morsel, OPT Lawyer says, does Morsel Made have to be in the front for that to trigger? I think no. It's just anywhere. So Marmo, if you're in chat still, please confirm. But I'm pretty sure anywhere you summon a morsel into the room, he just eats it immediately. It doesn't matter where the morsel is positioned or where Morsel Made is positioned. OPT Lawyer, do you work on immigration law? I'm thinking of OPT visas. Sorry, random aside. All right, I am BGS. If two morsel maids are in the same floor, who gets the morsel? Great question. I do not know the answer to that. There's got to be some kind of resolution to that. What do you think should happen? What should we do? I'm not sure what we're doing right now. What should we do? Should it be random? Should it be the one on the front, the one on the back? Round robin? You know, if there's three of them, this one gets one, then this one, then this one, then it goes back. I'm not sure what the right decision would be there, gameplay-wise. But interesting question and interesting to think about. Arctic Mists. What happens if you ascend or descend a morsel to the same floor as Morsel Made? Great question. I would guess I would have to try it, but so I'm not sure. But based on the wording, I would expect if you pushed it into the room, that would not count as summoning. So Morsel Made would not eat it, and then it would follow the normal eating rules for how morsels normally work. That would be my assumption, based on the fact that the trigger is called Morsel Summoned, and summoned in our terminology means a specific thing. It means casting it out of your hand and into the room. And so using Ascend or Descend is not the same as summoning, so I don't think it would eat it. And then looking at the last card, this is the one that you guys saw last week. From Andrew. This is a non-unit. So the Melting Remnant had more units than the other clans. So for the rare in this one, we added a spell. So it's the Hallowed Halls. Kill all friendly units in the current room that you're targeting, and reform random units from your dead unit pile, from the consume pile, until the floor exceeds its capacity limit. And so this is pretty interesting card. This is going to be very powerful if you get, reform bonuses and you've got the right characters and the right units that are dead. Hallowed Halls is proving to be both a popular card and a powerful card amongst the private beta testers. So I think it's cool. And all of these new cards have really cool animations that go along with them. I'm just showing a screenshot, so I can't show those right here. But when you see them in game, they look really cool. All right, V_C. Hey Mark, I want to thank you for the amazing and consistent updates you have provided us monster trainers. You are welcome. Thank you for saying that. So yeah, I'm happy to answer any other questions about these cards. I'll hold it here for a second, and then when we're done looking at these new rare cards that are going to be in the upcoming DLC, then let's take a look at the patch notes from the patch that just went live today, because there were some gameplay changes, and I think based on the feedback from the public test and our private beta, I think the balance changes that we put into the patch that just went out, there's definitely a lot of people seem to like them, so I think it's a positive, feel-good update balance-wise that's making most people happy. All right, I am BGS. Would Morsel Made instantly eat Morsel Maker's morsels? I think yes. Those are cardless and not played from hand, but are they summoned? Well, that's a great question. Cardless is one of those exceptions that we added specifically to handle unusual cases like this, so I don't know. If someone on the dev team in chat knows for sure what happens with, or from the private beta knows what happens with that, please post in chat. So I'm not quite sure. All right, Arctic Mists asks, can you cast Hallowed Halls on an empty room, or does it need to kill a friendly unit? I'm pretty sure it doesn't need to. That's actually something that there was a card that we changed the text on fairly recently. That's in, this is the live game I'm looking at here, the Melting Remnant. It's the one that kills a random player unit. Here, Crushing Demise. So we changed the wording. I don't remember when exactly we changed it, but we changed the wording on this card to try to make it clearer that it does not require killing one of your units. I think some players thought it did, so a similar question, but we reworded the description to say kill a random non-boss enemy unit, does that first, and then kill a random friendly unit, but if there's not one in the room, you can still cast it. You don't have to have one. And so I think the rule is the same for Hallowed Halls as well. But Hallowed Halls only kills your units, kill friendly units. So if you cast it in a room that had no friendly units, yeah, it would just reform. It would just do the reform. So interesting. Datagni. So is the Apex Imp an imp that's nearly reached demonhood? I am not the lore master, so I don't know what the lore is. Actually, to be perfectly honest, I don't know what the lore is for the Apex Imp. I am certain that there is lore, and it will probably explain that. Redbeard, aka Brendan, who writes all the lore, definitely thinks through all of these types of things, as I think you guys know. So yeah, once we get a chance to see the Apex Imp in game, we can look over the lore and read it together. OPT Lawyer, question: how do you make the imps look so hellish yet so cute? There's definitely a balance. There's definitely a balance there. I think it's been interesting in terms of the art design of the game. There's some folks on our team want it to be more cute, some more hellish, and we've tried intentionally to create a kind of balance between those things. And yeah, I'm glad that you like it. All right. Gig asked do? Sorry, I just completely destroyed that. What does Primordium do when summoned in a floor with Morsel Made? Is Primordium a morsel? No. So, I don't think you eat Primordium. I don't think Morsel Made eats Primordium. But I could be wrong on that too. That's what makes Monster Train so interesting and fun, right? All these like weird combinations. So I don't know. If someone else knows, please post in chat, but I am not sure. But I don't think he eats him because he's a champion and not a morsel in terms of its subtype. That type at the bottom of the card. All right. Okay, anything else? Give it another 20 seconds or so to see if there's any other questions on the new guys here, the new cards. We got Apex Imp, Steel Singer, Eel Gorgon, Morsel Maid, and Hallowed Halls. Merman Rogue 1, re-asking, just arrived, so not sure if this was asked. What about the card which revives every morsel played so far? That's Wretch, right? If I remember correctly. Let's see. Return all eaten units to your hand. Am I forgetting that there's another card that brings them back into the room immediately? I don't think so, right? You're talking about Wretch, right? If it was Wretch, then you just get them back in your hand and you could recast them into the same room that has Morsel Made in it, and then he would re-eat them again. Beowulf FFT. How does Morsel Made interact with the All Types modifier? I would guess by default, every character would be a morsel, and then he would eat every single character that you place in the room with him if that mutator is on. Hive Mind, I think is the name of the mutator. In which case, that would be a pretty weird run if you were using Morsel Made with Hive Mind. But I don't know. Maybe you can make it work. You just get +2/+2. I think it would be hard to make that strategy work, but, give it a shot. All right. Okay, I'm going to wrap up looking at these new units. I'm sure somebody will screenshot this or what have you and post it, so more discussion can happen on Reddit, Discord, etc. Yeah, we're excited that. It's interesting with how much randomization and variability there is in Monster Train. Just adding one new card like Eel Gorgon, let's say, just creates a bunch of new possibilities and different feeling runs, just because it can come up and then your strategy changes to try to work with this card to try to maximize its potential. And so even though it's just one new card per clan, we're excited about the kind of new feel that it adds to the game, especially when you start to mix this stuff with Wormkin, the new clan that we showed last week. All right. Okay, let's jump back over to the game solely because I can get the patch notes up. So I wanted to look at the patch notes for the new updates. So we talked about the controller support, the UI scale, and so on, but let's talk about the gameplay changes just briefly. I'll go over them and kind of some of the thoughts behind what they're there for. Sorry if you can't read this, but I'll read it out loud, so you don't need to anyways. All right, first thing, we've added a new trigger. It's called Cultivate, and it's used on the Awoken Champion, the Sentient. So it's a keyword that increases the attack and health of the unit with the lowest health in the room. So let's go and look at what that looks like in the logbook. Whoops, it's not here. It's on this one here. Okay. So we redesigned the champion upgrade path here because this was the least picked champion upgrade path and least powerful, I think. Both least picked and least powerful, or its win rate was quite bad. So we just completely redesigned this upgrade path for the Sentient. So Cultivate increases the attack and health of the friendly unit with the lowest health value by the Cultivate value, which triggers on Revenge. And so this is a way to buff up other units within the room when this unit gets hit, and it also gives you some additional card draw. So the levels are cultivate 1, 2, 3, and +1, 2, 3 cards per turn. All right, so that is a new keyword, and obviously it's on the sentient. So that is one of the big changes. Summer 1401. How will the logbook look with one card row being longer than the other? Are you talking about to add a new card in general here or something like that? We're still working on how it's going to work with the DLC when there's a 6th clan. We don't have anything to show on that yet, but you'll see how it all works if that's what you meant. We'll probably be able to show that in the next week or two. All right. Where was I? I was on patch notes. Okay. So we talked about cultivating sentient. Folks who have played it seem to really like the redesign there, and so I encourage you to check that out and give it a try the next time you're playing Sentient, and you see that at the Dark Forge. All right, the Awoken Hollow. We changed its Rejuvenate trigger, changed from targeting self to also using Cultivate. And the Awoken Merchant of Steel upgrade was changed from Spikes 4 to 10 health and Spikes 3. A bit of a redesign on that. I think that's believed to be a buff overall for sure. So check that out next time you're at the Merchant. Where were we? Okay. We changed some things about 2 spells that are kind of related. So Permafrost was added to Ice Tornado, which is in the Stygian Guard, and Excavation Eruption, which is in Umbra. These 2 cards are actually pretty similar. Was changed a bit. Its cost was reduced from 4 to 3, and the number of strikes were decreased from 4 to 3. So those 2 cards, design-wise, they are fairly similar. Ice Tornado's now got Permafrost. Anyway, some minor changes there. The Little Fade Firelight Path had its attack bonus decreased from 30 to 25. That was just, we felt it was too strong, so that's like, most of the things here are buffs. That's 1 nerf. Paraffin Thug, who is one of the weakest units in the game in terms of health. This is a Melting Remnant unit that gets you gold on a slay trigger when he kills things. Had its health increased from 3 to 10, so substantial increase there. The Abandoned Train event can now also give out Imp in a Box or Ember Cash, so there's some other alternative rewards that can come out of that. Penitent Remains, which is an artifact, had its attack bonus increased from 1 to 2. From remembering correctly, Penitent Remains is an event artifact. Here it is. Yep. When summoned, friendly units get +2 attack for every blight card in your deck. So there you go. That was buffed. What else we got here? Ember Stasis. I think this comes out of the same event. Damage increased from 100 to 120. Weathered Coldstones now trigger with each blight played instead of once per turn. Let's go look at that. Weathered Coldstones is this one. When you play a blight card, restore 5 health. So that used to only be able to be triggered once per turn, and now you can trigger it as much as you want. Pifona. Any plans to make hybrid cards between different clans? Interesting. Yeah, not right now, though we have considered that idea before, and I do think it's interesting. So, yeah, the idea of like certain things only appearing if you're basically playing certain clan combos or certain cards or artifacts. So I think it's a cool idea. It's just there's a lot of combos now, and when we add the Wormkin clan, there's even more combos of like specific clan combinations. So it'll be interesting, but I do think that's a cool idea, so we'll definitely consider it. All right. To wrap up the gameplay changes here, here's 2 cards that have been complained about for ages, it feels like, and then got changed. So these are both event cards. Bone Shine was changed from 2x Pyre Heal with Consume to 5x Pyre Heal with Purge. We consider this a buff. I mean, the Pyre Heal is increased, but usually this is a card that you don't want to keep drawing, or you don't want it clogging up your Consume pile and possibly, getting pulled back by like Impish Scholar, for example. So we think this is an improvement. And Bone Rattler is changed from 3x Pyre Attack to 5x Pyre Attack. So hopefully these are more interesting and more pickable now from that event. All right, other things from events. The Revenge attack buff option in the Abandoned Winged event additionally grants 20 health. on return or 30 health after waiting. So that is a specific reward from the Abandoned Winged that just got stronger. And then the damage option, same thing. It's just buffed. Buff the kind of rewards from putting a unit or a spell into that and waiting to get it back. Crushing Demise, we already talked about. We changed how the text works to try to reduce confusion about does it require a player unit, yes or no. Titan's Claws got a text clarification, nothing exciting. And there was another bug fix. It feels like we keep trying to get this to work right, and I think it does now. As a quality of life thing, when you cast Molded, let's go over here and look at something that does random reforming or any reforming. Here, what am I doing? Let's type it in. So when you cast Molded, and this isn't a random one, this is where you pick from your dead units. It used to be the case when the game launched that you had to select the unit. Even if you only had one, you cast Molded, then you had to click on the one unit, and then you reformed it. As a convenience, we tried to change this so that when you cast it, if there's only one possible target, it just automatically reforms it. And that worked, but that only worked if you only had one unit in the consume pile. If you had a spell in the consume pile with one unit, it would force you to pick the one unit again, which is not what we wanted. So now, regardless of how many spells are in the consume pile, if there's one unit, when you cast Molded, it will definitely just automatically reform it as a quality of life bug fix. So, long story short, I hope, if you've been waiting for that, I hope it makes your life better. Okay. That's it for the balance updates in the patch that just went live today. All right, Volcano1450 asks, what are the new odds to see the Bone Dog? Nothing has changed in this update, so it's the same as it was. And so to recap that real quick, I don't actually know the specific numbers, but in the Halloween update, like we had the original launch version of the game's Bone Dog rarity was quite high. In the Halloween update, we moved Bone Dog into his own event, and then for 2 weeks or so, we vastly increased the frequency of it. Then after Halloween update kind of ended and we took the Halloween stuff away, we pulled down the rarity some. You know, it's still like, as events go, it's the rarest, I think, but it's still like 3x as common as it used to be, something like that. Somebody on the team did the math. So nothing changed in this most recent update, but it's still far more common than it was at launch. And it's now moved into its own dedicated event rather than being kind of like a buried reward in a different event. Merman Rogue One, question, is there a plan on making more pyre-based artifacts and cards? There's a bunch of new things coming in the DLC. Yeah, I guess I can't remember. There's so much new stuff. I don't think I've even seen it all personally. So I bet there's more stuff that interacts with the pyre. So just wait and see as we continue to reveal more things about the gameplay in the DLC as the weeks go on. All right, any other questions today before we wrap up the stream? I'll give it a sec. All right, Poseidon J asks, any plans to rework Volatile Gauge again? I don't think so. I haven't heard of anybody on the team talking about that. So, not right now. We think it's good. I think we think it's in a decent place, so I don't think there's any plans currently. All right, folks wondering when the DLC is going to be available. Yeah, we still aren't ready to announce that yet. I mean, it's not going to be in December, so I can tell you that for sure. It's going to be next year. And, you know, we're starting to talk about it. We're starting to show it. As you saw in Andrew's stream last week, there's a significant amount of the art is complete. So it's coming. It's coming down the pipe. I'm sure within the next few weeks, we will be announcing the date. So the announcement's coming soon. Evil Mr. Cupcake. I don't know if this has been asked. Will Wormkin have an exiled champ or just one? They will have an exiled champ. So we didn't show that last week on the stream, so that's another thing that we will reveal coming up ahead of release, but it does have an exiled champ. So 2 champs in the Wormkin already. Marshmallow, do you think Horned Warrior should also have a health buff like Paraffin Thug? Um, yeah, Horned Warrior, I don't know, maybe. I'm not sure. I think the folks who think about balance are definitely thinking about that. I know people don't really like Horned Warrior a lot of the time. So maybe it does need one, or maybe it doesn't. I couldn't say. So I'm not the one doing the game design tuning personally, so I'm not sure what the designers are currently thinking about that unit. All right. Well, I'm going to wrap it up from there. So as a recap, we just released a controller and keyboard full support update on Steam and on GOG. That's out now. You can play the entire game with a controller or keyboard. You don't need to use the mouse at all. And there was a number of balance changes as well in that patch. We also added the large UI scale mode for playing on your TV, or if you just want the UI to be bigger while playing on your PC too, you can do it if you want to. We showed off some of the new cards from the DLC, some of the new rare cards in the existing clans. So there's one new rare card per clan. And just to recap those really quickly, we've got the Apex Imp, the Steel Singer, the Eel Gorgon, Morsel Maid, and Hallowed Halls. Those will be coming in the DLC to the existing clans, so you'll have to master them if you're interested in doing so. So yeah, we're super excited to talk more about the DLC soon. I'm sure next week we'll be showing off some more stuff. So until next time, I'll see you then. Bye.